René, welcome to Kambr Media's inaugural video interview series. So glad you can make it. Before we get into the interview questions, was just hoping you would do a quick introduction of tell people who you are.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, David. It's a pleasure to be here. So again, my name is René Armas Maes. I'm basically an international consultant. I started my career as a senior analyst at Simat Hillesing and Eckner in New York. Today, I manage a number of consulting projects on behalf of a number of clients with a key focus on revenue optimization, cost reduction, business restructuring, and strategic planning. In addition, I'm an airline and airport management instructor for both IATA and ACI, and I regularly contribute to a number of air transport publications, including yours. So thank you very much for having me.
We always appreciate your insights in written form as well, and appreciate it more in video form. So to get started, events are moving enormously fast, and this crisis is still in the relative early stages. Especially for airlines and across all industries. But for focusing on airlines, what is your assessment of the challenges airlines face currently in terms of liquidity?
Right. I mean, there are a number of them. I mean, if you see airlines continued observing a significant global reduction in passenger demand, and therefore capacity and routes continue to be cut and canceled. That's just the beginning of this, the impact that the virus is having on this. As these continue to unfold, we can observe what the impact on revenue is for the airlines. On the one hand, you have airlines that are selling fewer tickets or not tickets at all. Then you have more credit that is being issued to customers due to travel cancellations. And then you have higher than normal cancellation rates that are happening in the industry. All of them have put the industry on its knees in terms of their ability to generate cash and to maintain liquidity. On the other hand, you have the airlines that are keeping the same fixed costs and other related expenses, such as the aircraft leases, the insurance costs, the payroll costs they need to pay, and the debt. So that remains intact. So simply put, if you look at the expected surplus that you should get of a revenue minus a cost equation, it's no longer there. So in addition, we have seen airlines with yearly revenues, and let's put an example out there, with $5 billion in yearly revenues moving to less than 10% to that amount of revenue being generated today, because basically, revenue has plunged, which is associated with this crisis. This is a major concern for any business, and airlines consequently need to take actions and cost containment strategies as demand has basically collapsed. Today, the few revenue being generated by the airlines is basically cargo flights. For cases where a carrier does not operate a dedicated cargo fleet, many airlines are converting or adapting their passenger fleet aircraft to transport medicine, supplies, and any other essential cargo goods. In fact, cargo rates has risen more than 10% in recent weeks, as a number of companies are prepared to pay more to ship goods after drastic cuts in passenger flights, where in the past cargo was being hauled in the belly of a passenger aircraft. Mm-hmm. Another positive, if we can say positive, about what is happening right now is that oil prices have risen very sharply, and they're at the lowest in the last 17 years. Basically, the barrel today, if you look at the Brent, is about $23 per barrel. Therefore, if you combine higher cargo rates with lower fuel costs, it is definitely becoming an economical opportunity for many airlines to haul cargo in using their adapted passenger planes.
Well, definitely some positive points there. And obviously, this is an unprecedented moment. The closest we have to a point of comparison was the position of airlines 12 years ago when the recession hit. And airlines were heavily in debt. Coming into this crisis, airlines, major airlines at least, have been profitable since 2014. So does that mean that they are better able to weather this particular crisis, which is obviously more enormous than the recession appeared 12 years ago? Or has the pandemic and the resulting 90% capacity decline erased all that financial power that that they came into this just barely a month ago. What's your assessment there?
Yeah, I mean, good. Yeah, good question. I mean, definitely the airline industry has been profitable. I mean, it was profitable in year 2006, 2007, and then from 2010 onward. So especially in the last 4 years, I mean, global commercial airlines profitability have averaged 30% in EBIT margin, which is something that we have never heard of in the past. So they did very well for the past year. Besides, and up until last year, the industry benefited from its 10th consecutive year of profit, or the longest run of profit in the industry history. So that's very good. So they should have cash reserve and stronger liquidity on hand. This is what people might expect. But with those in mind, one might probably assume that they will be able to weather this crisis in a better shape than they are today in terms of liquidity. Typically, airlines will have between 3 to 4 to 5 months of cash reserve for unexpected events. But that takes into account the fact that airlines still were able, and assume in this case that they keep this cash reserve, but they will continue being able to generate cash, not probably at the same capacity in the past, but still generating some cash. And this is not happening today. So with little cash revenue coming in, airlines' cash balance is basically falling rapidly each week. Moreover, I mean, part of the cash crunch problem that the airlines are having today is associated with one of their single problems they created. And this is associated with stock buyback programs that they have instituted for a number of years, which has been actively used by many global airlines. This program, or this kind of program, has been used to basically take all the cash, most of the cash reserves the airline has had, to basically buy back their stocks in order to inflate their price and to its investors. For example, and if you look at financial statement for some of the major US airlines, you will see that in the past 6, 7, 8 years, because of all this profitability they have been having in the past year, they started to buy back options. I mean, we have the case of American Airlines spending 15 billions in stock buybacks in the past 6 years. In addition, Delta and United did the same. So the question is, if they were more conservative in this regard, they might probably have a much stronger liquidity today, and their pressing need to ask for a bailout might not be there. So these are definitely unprecedented times. If they are going to be getting any bailout, obviously one of the limitations or guarantees the government is going to ask them is to stop these stock buyback programs.
Right, and there has been, I know, on the U.S. side, some agreement to cease buybacks until the terms of government loans are in place, until they're paid back. But 2 questions: how much can government assistance help airlines maintain liquidity, and are there private funding mechanisms also available for airlines at this moment?
Yes, I mean, on the public funding side, I mean, they you can negotiate different mechanisms with governments. There are cash advances, there are subsidies, state guarantees on loans, there are grants, there are access to loans with a subsidized interest rate that can be evaluated with government for federal aid. In any case where cash is given, or a loan or credit, as you mentioned, is approved, guarantees need to be in place, such as this debt that the government's going to be, the airlines are going to be inheriting through this federal aid, should be considered as a senior debt and must take priority over the unsecured or otherwise more junior airline debts. Likewise, the government money should be used only to maintain operations, and an oversight on how this money is going to be spent needs to be in place. Other public funding initiatives will include, that this is basically airlines are trying to get as well, will be government tax relief, including complete or partial removal of aviation taxes for a limited period of time, and this could be related to airline tickets, payrolls, navigation charges, etc. Furthermore, there could be business tax deferrals or even tax holidays that can be negotiated. Lastly, one of the last mechanisms that you can negotiate with the government is a government equity stake in an airline. That's another possibility. But that will come with strict measures such as no dividend payout, no executive compensation increment for a number of years, and no stock buybacks, among others. That's on the government side. On the private funding side, I mean, obviously the airlines will have their shareholders. If the stock, if they capitalize on the increment of the stock price, they should probably have money, and they could probably put money to alleviate the situation they're having. There are other mechanisms they can use. One could be placing asset as a collateral to raise cash. This could include not only aircraft, which is what people might think, at first. It could be engines, it could be specialized toolings and equipment, it could be key real estate properties. In addition, they can look even to intangible assets, and those of them are, the frequent flyer program, the co-branded credit cards. You can get cash, out of that too. Furthermore, obviously, they need to talk to their banks, and basically use their existing revolving credit facilities. They can use letter of credits as well, that they have to improve flexibility. Finally, they can sell assets, and they can use a mechanism that is pretty well known in the airline industry, which is a sell and lease back opportunity, which is basically, you sell the asset and then you lease it back. Finally, they can cancel some of the orders, aircraft orders they have, and get their deposit back, among others. So, there are many mechanisms available from the public side and the private side that airlines can tap to raise cash.
So those are all great long-term solutions that, potential long-term solutions at least, that airlines can explore. Is there anything that you're thinking about, anything else that airlines can do now in terms of taking immediate action? What is there anything else that you think they should be doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, you need to stop the bleeding. To stop the bleeding, you need to basically cut capacity. As I mentioned in the past, this have to be done at domestic, regional, and international level. Second, you need to preserve liquidity. So we already discussed what are the mechanisms the airlines can use through public and private funding. Third, you need to contain costs. You need to be very aggressive on containing costs, because your network is going to be, the economy is shrinking, and your network is going to be shrinking as well. So you need to contain costs. So some of the things that you can do, you need to look into how to implement a linear human capital structure, cost structure. Some of the stuff that you can do, you can look into voluntary unpaid leave. You can associate that to increase the sign-up of employees with different perks. These are, what employees will value. And some of the stuff they will value is the ability to retain health benefits and travel privilege. In addition, you can look at changes in payment rates. You can look at retirements. You can look at unpaid vacation time. You can look at reduced work time as well. And you can look at furloughs. And finally, as a last resort, obviously, you can look at a strategic layoff. That's on the human capital side. Now, if you want to look into further cutting the workforce salaries, you can do that as well. And you should start from the very top. From the very top means that the executive salary can be cut, considered as part of the measures, right? And you are seeing today that that's been ranging from 15% to 50% and up until 100%. For example, the CEO basically is giving his $1 million salary for the remaining of the year to preserve employees' jobs. And that basically set the tones within the organization. Other measures that you can look at is basically paying no fee to the chairman and the board. At least try to reduce them for a number of months or for the fiscal year. Likewise, no annual bonuses should be paid to executives. Further, you can look into director managers and operational staff pay cuts that could be considered. And no dividends should be paid out. And other non-essential recruitment and consulting work probably should be discontinued and stopped. But unfortunately, as it is, even with all these measurements that we have talked in this question and the previous questions, airlines revenues and expenses the forecast looking forward is indicates that a large scale reduction of the workforce must occur on top of all the measures that airlines are going to be taking.
All makes sense. So lastly, as I noted, this is still the early stages of this crisis relatively. So it's impossible for anyone to just sort of say, look into a crystal ball. But what are your expectations at this point in terms of, how well positioned airlines are to get through this crisis, and what kind of comes next in terms of people's willingness to fly and airlines' ability to inspire that?
Right. So I'm optimistic about the industry. The industry will definitely change. It will become leaner, more cost focused. It will become more flexible and agile. But overall, these are very difficult times indeed for the industry. As you know, as looking as in terms of seat capacity cuts, the painful process of slashing its workforce, which has just started, and airlines are in for a bumpy ride, definitely on this one. So they will need to concentrate on all their efforts to drastically reduce their network, shrink operations, embrace initially domestic traffic, because this is within your own countries and boundaries for a number of months, and depending on border restrictions and how willing other countries will open their borders, there will be a potential for a limited initially international services that can be expected. As soon as the borders are open and hopefully the international tourism, start picking up, hopefully at the end of the year or next year. I mean, we are on this for a long run. Therefore, it is expected that airlines will resize and emerge from COVID-19 as smaller carriers, and could even take years for them to get back to their former size. Besides that, I'm expecting potential regulatory changes. I'm expecting mergers and acquisitions to happen, takeovers to happen as well, and bankruptcies as well. Another change that might occur is that airlines might be in the future focusing more on reducing costs to secure financial viability of their business than on revenue premiums, as those premiums will be much harder to attain in the business, especially in the short to medium run and in mature markets. Finally, as discussed, federal aid should be considered as one of the steps to enhance liquidity, but should not be considered as one of the first steps. It should be considered as one of the last resort. Airlines need to do their homework. They need to cut costs. They need to have a sound and aggressive cost-cutting plan in place, executed, implemented, and then they could potentially ask for these government aid. On that, times have changed, and other airlines, and those airlines not able to contain costs and present a solid financial aid case might get less funds than they anticipated, or worse yet, not get any at all.
Well, René, thank you for the sobering, but yet still, for the most part, relatively hopeful assessment. Looking forward to speaking with you as we all go through this. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for the opportunity, David. Take care and stay healthy.